The history of space exploration, the 1950s. Space exploration began with some visionary pioneers. And these two gentlemen were working against each other during what was called the space race between the United States and the Soviet Union. So who we have here? Werner von Braun was working for the United States. He was a German who developed the V-2 rocket for Nazi Germany. Towards the end of World War II, von Braun and a number of engineers knew that Germany was not going to win, and so they intentionally surrendered to United States military personnel, were taken into custody, were put in a prison camp in the United States, but also put to work. And ultimately they were trusted as part of the U.S. space program. Without Werner von Braun, we probably would not have gone to space as quickly as we did. He was a brilliant engineer. And his Nazi background is certainly unfortunate. It's not clear if he was truly a Nazi at heart or if he just did what he was told. On the Soviet side was Sergey Korolev. He was called their chief designer. For years, his identity was kept secret. It wasn't until after he died that his name was released, because they feared assassination attempts against him. You have to think about the mindset of the Cold War, that the Soviet Union was exceedingly paranoid about anybody attacking them, stealing their ideas, all of that. And so they kept this guy under wraps. But he is the one responsible for developing most of the rockets that were used in the early successes of the Soviet space program. Of course, the first goal was to just put something into space. And so that something were satellites. And in particular, there was the International Geophysical Year. And there's kind of a competition to put a satellite into orbit to study the Earth. And I'm not quite sure how the reasoning works, but these geophysical years and things like that actually run for almost 2 years. So this was from 1957 to 58 was the International Geophysical Year. It was about a year and a half year. Soviets beat us. They sent up Sputnik. That was on October 4th, 1957. It's about the size of a basketball. And it had, I think, one actual scientific instrument on it, but mainly it just sent out a series of radio beeps so it could be tracked. You could see it in the night sky just after sunrise, just before sunrise or just after sunset, where the sun angle was right. You could see it going overhead. The United States was very frightened by this, because now we've got something that the Soviets made flying over our heads every 90 minutes. And what was to keep them from dropping bombs on us? So we kept pushing to get a satellite in orbit. We kept failing. A month later, in November of 57, Soviets sent up their second satellite. This one was much bigger, and it carried this little dog named Laika. The unfortunate part of this was that the mission was not designed to bring the dog back alive. They didn't have heat shields or anything like that. So there are a wide range of numbers for how long Laika lived. I think the most accurate is that she lived about 1 day. You'll also hear 6 days. There was 6 days of life support in the capsule, and there was food, but after that the oxygen was gone. But it appears that the radiation shield got damaged during launch, and that it was actually the radiation that killed the dog. So, sad ending for poor Laika. But in terms of engineering, this meant a bigger rocket because it was a heavier payload, and we still hadn't gotten something into space yet. So it wasn't until 1958 that the United States finally got a satellite in orbit. It was Explorer 1. And this is a mock-up of what it looked like. So you can see it's very tiny, but it discovered the Van Allen belts, which are belts of radiation trapped in our magnetic field. And so this was a major scientific discovery using a satellite, really the first scientific discovery using a satellite. So, okay, we've got an object into space. That was our first goal. Next up, let's try to get a person into space.